Hello, and welcome to Farm Sanctuary's celebration for the turkeys. There are few traditions at Farm Sanctuary more core to our mission and history than the simple yet profound act of inviting turkeys to the table. I know many of you have been with us along the way, celebrating turkeys and shining a light on their intelligence and loving natures, and we are truly grateful. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, we are so glad to have you. Coming up, celebrated vegan chefs will show us how to make traditional and delicious plant-based dishes, and our leadership team will share empowering messages about building new, compassionate traditions. We'll also meet 5 members of our turkey flock and their caregivers, who will share with us their stories of survival and sentience and give us a peek into their life at Sanctuary. And of course, all of this will culminate in the main event, a lovingly prepared feast in honor of our rescued friends, as well as the millions more who can't be here. So kick back, cozy up, and enjoy this beloved tradition that has been giving turkeys a seat at the table, not on it, since 1986.
When we started this back in 1986, we wanted to come up with a way to celebrate Thanksgiving that we as vegans could feel good about. This is a very hard holiday for vegetarians, vegans, and people who care about animals to go to family gatherings and to see a dead bird in the middle of the table. And we felt there needed to be another alternative. So we came up with the Adopt a Turkey program, where people could adopt a turkey and save a life instead of sitting around a table and, in a sense, celebrating the death of an animal. And so in 1986, we had our first celebration for the turkeys. This was in a small backyard at our house, and a friend had one at his house in Philadelphia, and we did a few of these the first year in 1986. But each year, our celebrations for the turkeys and our Adopt a Turkey program expanded. And we started placing turkeys in homes across the East Coast and then eventually across the country. And as we brought the turkeys to their new homes, we would feed them and have celebrations, and we would invite the media. We got some amazing coverage. We felt that seeing these animals as individuals who had feelings and who were welcomed into our homes was a much better message and story that better served our humanity. So the celebration for the turkeys started very small. It grew, it expanded around the country. Now there are sanctuaries around the US and around the world even that are having events that take care of turkeys as friends, not food, where the animals are fed and treated as honored guests instead of as the centerpiece of the dinner table. And it's just been wonderful to watch how this tradition has spread among Farm Sanctuary supporters and others. We are very grateful that you're participating with us this year, and we hope you enjoyed the celebration.
The message of this event is to just share with the world how special every turkey is. They each just want to enjoy life.
The way I would describe Venus's personality is both assertive and affectionate. I say affectionate because she definitely enjoys cuddling with human and turkey friends alike, but she's definitely assertive, and she is the leader of the flock. If anyone's, too close to her space or she needs to set some boundaries, she definitely will do that, and I guess in that sense you could call her the champion of the flock. Turkeys are incredibly curious, always exploring their environment. One of my favorite things about turkeys, and also chickens, just birds in general, is with their curiosity for finding things. They oftentimes are using their beaks to explore different things that they're finding. They're that friend that will let you know if you have something in your teeth, because if you smile at a turkey, they're immediately gonna turn their head and then just pluck it right from your mouth. Thank you. Venus was bred to be slaughtered for Thanksgiving, but luckily for Venus, as well as for us, a local rescuer brought her here to Acton, where she now lives with many of her friends, including Serena, who is one of the turkeys that she was rescued with, and they are the best of friends. I think if people had the opportunity to get to know turkeys in the same capacity as I have, they would make vastly different decisions about the food that they put on their plate, because they would have an opportunity to get to know the friendship and the love of a turkey that most people probably don't even believe is possible.
Hi, it's Emily Deschanel. I'm wishing you happy holidays from my socially distanced home to yours. This holiday season will be unlike any other. Fewer families able to come together, parents adapting to create a new normal for their children, a society struggling under the weight of a global pandemic and systemic racism. Yet, in the midst of these unrivaled times, we as a people are working to find common ground. We're learning that public health requires a commitment and a sacrifice from all of us. We're marching in cities across the country, and the more we listen, the more we learn. And through all of this, we have the opportunity to live a life that is more in line with our values. So this year, let's not forget those who've been disproportionately affected by the pandemic. Everyone, including the millions of animals who are being killed en masse due to slaughterhouse closures and supply chain backups, and the workers in these facilities deemed essential who are forced to work directly in harm's way, resulting in hundreds of deaths. I hope you'll join me in this season of giving and stand in solidarity with those exploited by the factory farming industry, including the 46 million turkeys slaughtered every year for Thanksgiving, by leaving turkeys off of your plates and adopting one instead. Visit adoptaturkey.org to learn more. And thank you.
This is the calm before the storm, so get ready. Yeah.
Jackie is the queen of the barn. Whatever Jackie says, everybody else does. She was dropped off in a barn by what was called the turkey fairy. She was there with like a few other poults, and somebody walked in the morning and just saw this group of little baby turkeys in a cuddle puddle like they owned the place. She and her buddy Christina were the more friendly and outgoing of the group. They love sitting on people's laps. They love getting cuddles and scratches. She's one of our older girls, so she kind of like rules the roost. If you have to like come in here and medicate anybody or medicate her specifically, she starts like chirping, and then she gets everybody all riled up, and then you'll have a crowd of girls who are just like really angry, and she's like, yes, I did this. They make a range of noises. You can tell which are the angry ones and which are the happy ones. They'll do like happy chirps, and you're like, oh yay, you're in a good mood. And then sometimes they'll puff up and they'll do the angry ones, and you're like, keep my distance today, you know. But yeah, you can, you know, their personalities come out, and you can tell a lot about them based on, you know, what they say and what they do, which is pretty cool. You're just very cute.
We set up today to prep lots of treats for the turkeys. It's always really fun to get excited and get in that spirit.
The turkeys don't get these lavish feasts, you know, but once a year, and it's a huge deal.
It's fun doing a little decoration.
Yeah.
Thank you all again for joining us today. I love this event. It's such a joy to flip the script and really celebrate these amazing birds during the holiday season. Because the reality is that Thanksgiving and turkeys have become synonymous, but sadly, not in a way that celebrates them. At Farm Sanctuary, we're trying to change that. We want people to think differently about turkeys and to know them as the sentient beings that they are. By highlighting the unique personalities of these birds while also exposing the abuse that they face in an unjust food system, we inspire people to start new, compassionate traditions. Our Adopt a Turkey project is one of those traditions. Every year since 1986, we've posed a simple yet radical question. Why not sponsor a rescued turkey for Thanksgiving instead of eating one? Over the years, thousands of people from all over the world have participated in this beloved campaign, which reaches millions of people annually with a message of compassion for its bright birds. You can join this active community of supporters by visiting adoptaturkey.org and symbolically adopting one of the rescued turkeys you're meeting here today, or the whole flock, and be part of a growing new movement toward a kinder Thanksgiving. Or gift a sponsorship to a friend or a loved one. On adoptaturkey.org, you can also join thousands who have already signed our turkey-free pledge for a compassionate Thanksgiving, dig into vegan holiday resources, take a personality quiz that matches you with your turkey twin, and more. Thanks again for joining us today, and stay tuned. You won't want to miss the heartwarming moment when these survivors come to the table for their Thanksgiving feast.
That felt good. What I love about turkeys is, despite the fact that they're so misunderstood, and despite the neglect and horrible things that humans do to them, when you show them love and compassion, they have in their hearts the ability to show it right back. When I met Sandy, she was featherless, had wounds under her wings and severe bumble, and had been really mistreated by humans. She had wounds on her feet treated and then wrapped for comfort. She climbed into my lap despite all of those things. That takes a lot of courage to be mistreated and open yourself up to love. My heart is just so full for her. Sorry, I didn't mean to get emotional. I love her so much. We love you so much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Miko. I am Farm Sanctuary's Manager of Social Justice Programs, and I'm honored to be introducing you all to our next guest, who we are very fortunate to have with us today, Jocelyn Ramirez. Jocelyn Ramirez is a plant-based chef, college professor, yoga instructor, and advocate for healthy food access in her community. Jocelyn founded the catering company Todo Verde in 2015 with a mission to create delicious and healthy plant-based food inspired by her Mexican and South American roots for the East Side community of Los Angeles. In 2017, Jocelyn co-founded Across Our Kitchen Tables, an organization focused on uplifting women of color in the food industry that hosts skill shares and an annual symposium. Earlier this year, Jocelyn published her first cookbook, La Vida Verde, Plant-Based Mexican Cooking with Authentic Flavor, to more broadly share her expertise in making delicious plant-based Mexican food. We are very glad to have you here today. Thank you for joining us, Jocelyn.
Thank you so much for having me. And it's always so funny to hear your own bio, but I'm just a regular person, you know? And so honored to be here with Farm Sanctuary to share a recipe that is very near and dear to me. Back when I started Todo Verde in 2015, I really wanted to be a stepping stone for many people in my community who could never think that plant-based food or veganism could be, you know, anywhere near their near future, right? In terms of them taking on this lifestyle. And so I wanted to really take an approach that felt like our gente, our people could still eat all the things, could still eat the ceviche and the mole and the tacos and the pipián and still feel that nostalgic sense of pulling up a chair at my abuelita's table or their abuelita's table. And it's really resonated with a lot of folks in the community to have a place like a cultural hub where folks can come together to share a meal that is healthy, that still feels as it is a part of the culture. And then to also know that you're kind of meeting people and sort of thinking and uplifting, like, what does it mean to think about plant-based as a Mexican American person? You know, like the structural issues that I like to talk about of like why somebody in a low-income community of color might not be plant-based because they don't have access to the food and the things, right? But really thinking about how do we reconnect to the land in the way that our ancestors have always connected to the land, in a way that through time and transition, we have sort of lost touch with, to be honest with you. And so I am honoring my ancestors today and the people of this land with a recipe that is a three-sister salad, as I call it, Las Hermanas salad. And it's a recipe of beans, corn, and squash, which is a polyculture. Our gente call it a milpa. It's like a milpa way of growing food. And these three ingredients have grown together very beautifully for generations and generations, mostly because the corn pulls a lot of nitrogen out of the soil and the beans pull nitrogen out of the air and bring it back into the soil. And then you have squash, which helps as a shade mechanism and also helping to keep the plants in place. So sort of like a support system. But more than anything, like, it's just such delicious food. I like to let folks in my community know that anytime that they miss something that had meat or dairy in it, they're likely missing the flavors of the plants that flavor that dish. They're missing all the spices, all the seasoning, all the chiles, the tomate, the fire roasting, the slow cooking, and all that can still be achieved so beautifully with plant-based ingredients. So I am going to be sharing a recipe from my book that you mentioned, La Vida Verde. It's Las Hermanas en Chipotle. It's a chipotle dressing. And again, it's beans, corn, and squash. And this can go in any direction. I like to fire roast my ingredients, which I've already done. I like to slice things up, fire roast them, get as much flavor into each one of those individual ingredients as possible. Or you can saute them, roast them in the oven. You can take this in any direction that you want. And then the dressing that coats everything is a robust, earthy flavor of spicy chipotle with oregano and so many things. So again, going back to this beans, corn, and squash. I mean, this is really like the holy trinity, you know, of our agriculture. And so we have our corn, which is just wrapping up or getting into its season. And then we have our squash, our jalapeno. I'm using some white beans here, some frijoles blancos, a little bit of cilantro. And I am going to just simply pull it all together. I've already fire roasted my ears of corn, my slices of Mexican squash, and I've already diced it up so everything's kind of in the same sort of shape family. And I'm just gonna add that to a bowl. And I'm telling you, this recipe is super simple. It's also one that is such a crowd pleaser, and you can make this for many different occasions aside from just, you know, holidays. But I've actually made this for holiday celebrations, and family members will ask me, what was in that salad? And they won't be asking about other dishes, but they'll definitely ask about this one. So you definitely want to make it for family. Here I have some white beans that I've cooked, and I'm gonna just add those to my bowl. And they're still a little warm, so hopefully they'll cool down. You can again, take this in any direction. They could be black beans, pintos, they could be garbanzos, you could make frijoles de la olla, or you could use canned beans, whatever's accessible to you. You can use lentils if that's what you had. And then the squash, if you have zucchini, yellow squash, if you want to roast a butternut squash, like take it in any direction that you know you will love. And of course, corn here is super essential. So whatever variety of corn that you have available or on hand. So I'm just gonna mix those together. And I'm going to also add a fire roasted jalapeno that I just minced up so that I can get, again, some of that earthy flavor that fire roasting brings. It reminds me of being in Mexico and being at my family's rancho and fire roasting corn that we literally had just grown, just what we call conviviendo, like living with each other, sharing our lives together. That fire roasting is really, really nostalgic and an important flavor for me. So if you could fire roast, trust me, it makes all the difference. I just did it on my stove. I have a gas burner stove. You could grill outside, whatever is accessible to you. And then I'm simply adding some oregano. I have a teaspoon of oregano, 1/4 teaspoon of chili flakes. I have 1/8 of a teaspoon of dried cumin powder, a little bit of crushed black pepper that I'm adding. And by the way, this was 2 ears of corn. This was 1 Mexican squash and 2 cups of cooked beans and 1 jalapeno. So it's all slowly coming together. And then I'm going to add some lemon juice. You can add lime juice. This is going to give it this nice brightness, that acidity that you need. So this is a 1/4 cup of lemon juice. And I have a 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil. Option to add the oil. I think that it kind of gives it a nice mouthfeel. This balance of, salt, fat, acid, heat kind of creates this really, really complex and beautiful dish. So I'm going to add a little bit of that fat with extra virgin olive oil. And the last couple ingredients here, I have some chipotle en adobo. And if you've never had chipotle en adobo, it's chipotles that you find in this adobo sauce, typically canned or jarred. And I like to blend them up. As soon as I, open up the container, I throw it in the blender, and then I just have all paste. And so I have a tablespoon of chipotle and adobo paste that's already pre-blended up. If you're using 1 whole chile, that's kind of the same equivalent, and you can just mince it up. And then I have about 1/2 bunch of cilantro just minced up that I'll be adding to the bowl. And the last thing is, of course, salt. So just season it up nicely with salt to taste. I'm using here just a flaky kosher salt to bring it all together. And I'll just simply bring it all together. And this dish for me is so important because Indigenous communities for years and years have really relied on, have really leaned on for just, a full-on meal packed with nutrition, but that also doesn't compromise on flavor, and that is also keeping us rooted in what's most important for our culture. In today's society, especially, in a neighborhood like the one that I grew up in Southeast LA, what I see more of is not farms growing this, not people growing this in their backyard. You see a lot of concrete, liquor stores, fast food chains. Like, that's what we see. And I think that really has to change. And it's going to take us coming back to what our ancestors, what we know the people of this land have done for years and years that didn't affect their health in the same ways that we're seeing today, right? My grandparents migrated to the United States after living in a small rancho in Mexico for years. And they lived, my grandfather was just 1 month shy of living to 100, and they were healthy people. And I'm not sure if I can say the same about my family members who migrated here when they were younger. And of course, assimilation happens where people are trying to fit into this American lifestyle and culture, which is very different than a rancho in Mexico. And we see the consequences of that. So it's really up to us as a people to reclaim our health. And to do so in a way that acknowledges and represents our culture, which is deeply rooted. And for a holiday like Thanksgiving, for example, my family sometimes will make pozole over this holiday celebration time. And I've had people say, hey, your pozole doesn't have chicken or pork in it. Therefore, that's not traditional. You're not doing something that's truly Mexican because it's not the way it's supposed to be. And I really love to challenge that finger pointing that happens because the reality is that a dish like pozole has been eaten by our indigenous ancestors for generations, long before colonization, long before we ever had pork, beef, chicken, dairy, all the things, right? And so when people question what tradition really, or what they consider their tradition to be, I like them to think about and challenge that notion and think about how our traditions have evolved over time. Traditions are something that continue to evolve, which means if you think something is your tradition today, you can adjust that. You can adjust that. You can really think to what the true essence of these traditions are, that are our indigenous traditions, and really kind of take it back in a way that makes sense in today's society, right? This idea of decolonizing our thoughts, our diet, our everyday life in today's world. So I am just folding together these ingredients, and I'm gonna just taste for salt, give it a little taste. I'm gonna add just a touch more salt, and it is so good. It has such a like rooted earthiness to it with the frijoles that are I just literally cooked them right now, so they're so delicious. Frijoles de la olla, that earthy balance of the oregano, the spice of the chipotle, the little kick from the chili flakes as well, which you can use dried chile de árbol. Again, you can really, really make this with whatever you have in your pantry, just having the three sisters, the beans, corn, and squash. And I'm going to plate this up. And you can serve this in a variety of different ways to really honor this dish. You can simply serve it as people are arriving, family members are arriving or starting to eat, with some tortillas, some toasted tortillas, tortilla chips or totopos. You can also, my favorite way to serve it is to make tamales, and then open the tamales and serve this over the top as sort of a garnish for those tamales. So it provides a contrast of crunch and texture that's really, really delicious. But it's such an easy dish, as you can see. And it has so much love, so much intention. And I hope that folks are able to make it this holiday season and take a bite.
Amazing. I love that. As you were putting that up to the screen, I found myself leaning in because I wanted a bite so badly.
I know, I'm like, here you go.
Like, yes, I want it.
I took such a big bite too. It's so good.
I love it. I love it.
And I love it because it's important for us to always give thanks, not just during these times of the year, but to always give thanks to the people who cultivated each one of these ingredients, because in my hand, I'm probably holding up hundreds of other people's hands who brought this food to me today. The people who planted the seeds, who harvested, who not before even harvested, who grew this food, who harvested, who transported it, who put it on shelves, who checked me out at the grocery store or the farmer's market. Just so many people involved in this process. And it's important for us to be so, so grateful for every meal that we have in front of us that is nurturing us, because it's truly a community effort.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Jocelyn, for joining us and for sharing that recipe with us and all of that beautiful wisdom today. Definitely encourage you all to check out the resources that Jocelyn mentioned and to check out her cookbook as well. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you.
The turkeys kind of have a preference for the tablecloth color. We almost always use the maroon tablecloths, but we're trying a different color tablecloth this year, so we'll see if that stands true.
As we gather together for the celebration for the turkeys, it's important to recognize that the history of farmed animal oppression on this continent coincides with European colonization and the historic and ongoing displacement, genocide, and erasure of indigenous peoples. We want to respectfully acknowledge that the New York shelter is situated on the ancestral land of the Seneca people, part of the Iroquois Confederacy, and that the Acton shelter is situated on the ancestral land of the Quasavitam, who are citizens of the Fernandino-Tataviam Band of Mission Indians. To commemorate the importance of acknowledging the first people of this land, we've installed a plaque at the Acton shelter in collaboration with the Fernandino-Tataviam Band of Mission Indians to honor and raise awareness about the Quasavitam and their descendants, past, present, and future. With this small gesture and collaboration, we hope to support greater recognition of Indigenous presence, sovereignty, and rights as we work collectively to foster a more just and compassionate food system and world. We are very honored to be joined by Tribal President of the Fernandino Tataviam Band of Mission Indians, Rudy Ortega Jr., who will share more about the history and culture of the Qusavitam, the first people of this land.
Aminat, hello. My name is Rudy Ortega Jr. I'm the tribal president of the Fernandino Tataviam Band of Mission Indians. My tribe is a coalition of multiple lineages of people from villages throughout San Fernando, Santa Cruz, and Simi Valley that were taken to Mission San Fernando and were baptized and enslaved at the mission in order to build it out and change their lifestyle and culture. They were baptized and given a Christian first name. Today, out of the 41 lineages from 1843, there's only 3 surviving lineages enrolled in the tribe currently. And so we are here today to make sure our families are well connected and preserve our culture, our history, and who we are as people. The land that you're on, we'd like to acknowledge that lineage and that family, which from Kusanga. Kusanga people are still with us. Today they're enrolled. We identify them as the Garcia lineage, and they're well and thriving within our tribal communities. We thank them for their dedication of survival and preservation and continue the legacy of their ancestors. Throughout the course of our tribe's history, we have struggled to maintain our lands and our territories, essentially the importance of our villages. These villages were life, their history, the trees, the soil, and the air around it tells the stories of our ancestors. And through that, we have fought for Mexican land grants, preserving in U.S. time to U.S. land plans, and even tried with the Bureau of Indian Affairs to preserve the last remaining land grant, which is Rancho Palsanga, here in the city of San Fernando. These grants and these titles were lost through swindling, political strengths that came in and pretty much took these lands from us. Due to that nature, the tribe was not protected and was not able to preserve their lands and had lost its federal status as a recognized tribe. Today, the tribe is struggling and uplifting our culture and has filed a federal documentation to regain our federal status as a federally recognized tribe. Through that purpose and that process, the tribe has to show and exercise our sovereignty that has continued and had exists, and the people have always and continues to be here today. I ask you to help us and uplift our histories and culture by acknowledging the people of Kutsanga. So I thank you and like to build that relationship with you across and understanding our community more. And I encourage you to visit our website, tataviam-nsn.us, to learn more of our tribal history and culture. Akupa ai, thank you for your time and interest in listening and hearing of our history and culture. Mena kima mena kima pako kima pako kima pako kima mena kima mena kima pako kima pako kima pako kima mena kima mena kima pako kima pako kima pako kima mena kima aha aha aha.
Farm Sanctuary recognizes and acknowledges the Qusavitam, the first people of this ancestral and unceded territory of the Kusanga that is now occupied by our facility. During European colonization of the Americas, livestock-based agriculture was a driving force in expansion, and farmed animals became instruments in the displacement of native peoples from their home territories. It is important to acknowledge this history as we provide sanctuary to farmed animals on this land. We honor the Quasavitom elders, past and present, and the Quasavitom descendants who are citizens of the Fernandino-Tataviam Band of Mission Indians. We recognize that the Quasavitom are still here and are committed to lifting up their stories, culture, and community.
The diet that we want to have the turkeys on is, a little bit less processed and probably a lot of what people eat for Thanksgiving.
We cooked up a nice little feast of pumpkin, cranberries, kale, squash, apples. It was nice and pretty.
Our masterpiece.
Ferris is one of our broad-breasted turkey toms. He lives with a group of roosters who he loves to show off for. He is the hot shot of the barn. He struts all day for the caregivers, struts all day for the Cornish roosters that he lives with. He had been at a feed store. His friend Faye was sick, and someone at the feed store noticed that he was sick and wasn't doing very well. They asked if they could take him home, and the owner let Ferris go as well as a friend to Faye. Ferris spends a lot of his days foraging out in his yard, either picking up pine needles or picking up whatever else he can find out here, which is just really in stark contrast to the lives of most turkeys in the industry. Here at the sanctuary, Ferris is able to have all of his health and medical needs met while also being given the freedom to exhibit all of his natural behaviors and have as happy and long of a life as possible.
Hi everyone, my name is Nzinga and I'm the Senior Manager of Events and Experience here at Farm Sanctuary. We now have the pleasure of stepping into the kitchen of Chef Allende Howell, a restaurant-trained chef and lifelong vegan based in Los Angeles. He's climbed the ranks from childhood sous chef in his family's kitchen to owning the food manufacturing business I Eat Grass that ships prepared plant-based dishes across the country. Today, he'll put a savory spin on a classic dessert that we hope you all try at home. Welcome, Chef. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Chef, what are we making today?
So today, first of all, thank you for that introduction. That was amazing. But what we're going to make today is a savory bread pudding. So around the holidays or around the time you have a lot of extra breadcrumbs and whatnot. I love a sweet bread pudding. I'm gonna make a savory one today, and I think you're gonna love it.
So, Chef, tell us what's in this dish.
All right, so this dish combines your old bread you got laying around and shiitake mushrooms, onions, garlic, fresh sage, your choice of plant-based milk. Now, I used hemp milk, which is amazing, and I used a plant-based butter as well. All that, you whip it up. Oh, and some plant-based cheese. If you have a favorite vegan Parmesan cheese, I would recommend getting that. Nice strong one. I like Go Veggie. And if you have, and then a vegan feta cheese in there as well. So it's real. Listen, this is a decadent meal. This is for the holidays. You have it, you're gonna be like, oh, it's so good. Feel a little guilty, but you're gonna go back for seconds. That's what it is.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
So anyway, I'm starting off with sauteing some onions. I do this with a couple of shiitake mushrooms so I can get the flavor, and then my fresh sage. I'm just gonna let that saute out while we talk.
So would this be like a fancy alternative to stuffing?
It's a nice alternative to stuffing. It's also like, I'm kind of excited for like leftovers with this. I want to see what kind of sandwich I can make out of it, like after it sets, you know, because it's going to be super savory. I still have to test it myself, but I have a feeling it's going to be great for that. So, you know, like the day after the holiday is like everyone, like you're making Frankenstein meals, right? It's like, oh, this could be good. A little bit of this, you got a pie on top of it. You feel me?
Does the type of bread matter a lot in a dish like this? I guess you can't just use any old bread.
Yeah, so I used it like a sourdough. I kind of cracked it open and let it sit out for a day. And the reason why I did that is because I wanted all of the moisture to like dry out of it. That way, all of the stuff I'm putting in is just absorbed as flavor. So it's gonna be voila. Growing up in a vegan household was fun for me, right? And my parents were cooking all the time. Like they were trying to figure out how to make their replacements and their substitutes for everything all the time. This is garlic. And I'm putting the garlic in later because I don't want the garlic to burn. Speaking of, the first thing I learned how to make was spaghetti sauce, right? And I remember cooking with my dad, and he said, and I was like, well, how much garlic should I put in? He's like, you can never have too much garlic. I put the garlic in, but I burned the garlic, and then I continued to make the tomato sauce. And by the time it was done, it was like burnt garlic tomato sauce. And my dad was like, well, maybe you found too much garlic. The one thing that I learned about cooking growing up in a family full of cooks was that cooking is a slow process. Like, you have to literally plan to be in the kitchen all day, just cooking. And part of the reason for that is the love that goes into it. My parents had a flour mill. Like they would go get grain, put it through the flour mill. Flour mill goes on, take the flour out, make homemade bread. Like that's the level of vegan I was dealing with. Right? So I've always had this understanding of like food being very hands-on, right? You knew where it came from, you knew how it broke down, you knew, you just saw the process. This recipe is it's a derivative of a recipe in my book, and I wanted to change up a few things because I grew up eating a lot of soy, right? And people are like, oh my God, I hate soy. Soy's the devil. No, feed me soy. So I'm like, all right, cool. I have a different approach to it, again, because I've been eating it all my life, and like literally tofu and soy milk like changed our lives. It was like a Beyond Burger for us. You feel me? It was like, oh man.
It was all we had back then.
So instead of using soy milk in this, I'm gonna thicken it making a roux, and I'm gonna use garbanzo bean flour.
What's a roux?
Oh, sorry. A roux is when you put flour and fat together and you brown the flour like you're making a gravy or you're making a sauce. Yeah. So I'm browning as opposed to using like regular flour. I looked in the cabinet and I was like, oh, I got this garbanzo bean flour. And usually in this, I would need a thickener anyway. So I decided to try it with the garbanzo bean flour, and it came out really nice. So remixing the old recipe a little bit. With making the roux, like you just gotta let the flour brown and don't burn it. Hemp milk.
Nice.
Unsweetened, unflavored hemp milk. Again, no soy, right?
And why hemp milk? I know there's so many plant-based milks on the market now. How do you know which milk is right for the dish that you're making?
So to be honest, I just started using hemp milk. So in baking, I use usually soy milk or almond milk or a blend of soy and almond milk because the soy milk has a higher protein count, but the almond milk has a higher fat count. And so you can kind of mix and match it, I think, to get like a fluffier biscuit.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the evolution for me was going from working in kitchens to being a chef, to being an executive chef in New York, to being a private chef, then being back on my own out here and getting into food manufacturing. This is a vegan farm.
So what do you see as the future of plant-based eating within Black and Brown communities?
Well, I think people are really seeing the effects or drawing the correlation between how pre-existing conditions really affected Black people and Brown people during the COVID outbreak. And I'm having more and more people reach out to me and ask me, hey, I want to change my diet. How do I change? And I feel like we're in a moment, we're in a moment where we can really take advantage of it. And I think what Black and Brown people need to see most, vegan feta, is themselves represented in that movement. When you go to someone's house, if you don't recognize them, you're not gonna eat their food. Right? You're like, well, I don't know about you. I'm not sure what that is, but that's a common theme amongst people of color, right? It's like, I don't know if I trust your food. I trust my food, right? And that's what you have to sort of get past. And even if it's probably more over like creating new relationships to food. Our relationship to food is usually one of like, this is how we made this bad thing good, right? This is how we took this, or how we want to aspire to have steak every day. And that concept and that relationship is based around racism, right? It's based around what you were given. It's based around what you saw as good to aspire to. It has no basis on who you are with food and where food comes from. It really doesn't.
We were making do with what we had, So now that we have so many more options and really, really delicious vegan food out on the market, it's just about us making different choices.
I have the benefit of having lived this way my whole life. So like me being able to share, this is an egg replacer. It's basically like tapioca starch, a thickener. If you listen, and also just a little sidebar, like, if you've been listening to how I'm giving these instructions, like what we're replacing, the things that we're replacing when you're cooking, it's a little bit of science involved. And once you figure that out, once you figure out what does what, like egg does this, fat does this, et cetera, then you will have a better understanding of like how to approach vegan cooking. Because people approach cooking like, well, if it doesn't have eggs and milk and butter and cream, then I don't really know how to do it. But there are plant-based substitutes for almost all of those things. Let me just show you what I'm doing here on the back. So I'm sauteing. So this part here, these are my shiitake mushrooms. I got a little bit of onion in there and some sage. So I'm just sauteing those. And what I'll do is I'm gonna add a little garlic and a little salt to it. That's gonna fold into the bread pudding as I pour in the baking dish. So here's my bread, right? Sauce is almost ready. The bread's gonna go in here. And then when the mushrooms get done, I'm gonna fold them in between. So that way when you cut into it, it's gonna be like a little bit in every bite.
That sounds delicious.
And I learned something last night. And sometimes the food talks to you. I don't know if you're on this level yet, but sometimes the food, it talks to me. It's like, I need something else, Yende. And I'm like, well, what do you need? What do you need? I don't know. And then it said salty. And I was like, salty? But I don't want to just put salt in it, and I don't want to make the mushroom salty. So I was like, salty, okay, creamy. So like acidic, salt, yeah, capers.
Oh, capers. That's smart. Naturally salty and just, I like that.
I'm going hunting for some turmeric. Here it is. Turmeric is, will make it yellow. You'll know that if you've ever had like turmeric in anything. You don't want too much. So like somewhere between a fourth of a teaspoon in there.
Does it affect the flavor at all?
Not if you put the right amount in. You got to put a little bit in, and a little bit goes a long way with turmeric. So the turmeric as well, the more it cooks, the more yellow it gets. Now, the reason why I'm doing this with the mushrooms, I'm putting a little garlic on it now, is that, again, I want these little like pops of flavor throughout. So the bread is going to be like creamy and like, crunchy and toasty. And then when you bite through it, it's like little surprises along the way.
Like the capers and the mushrooms and the, okay.
Exactly.
So for some people, this could be their first plant-based holiday season. You've had many. Do you have any suggestions for someone who's trying this out for the first time? How they can veganize some classic dishes?
For holidays, I really think it's about like going for the sides and coming up with something like really cool and interesting. You know, if it's using tempeh bacon with Brussels sprouts instead of, you know, animal bacon. If it's, you know, the thing that I like to do, or that I did like to do when I was chefing a lot more, is kind of look at different cultures, different cuisines around the world, and see what struck me. And if I liked, I gotta show you this. This is beautiful. If I liked what I saw.
Oh yeah.
So that's just sitting there. I'm gonna mix it in, but that's just kind of sitting there. I was like, oh wow, that's amazing. Look at it. Get in there. Ooh. Ooh, yeah. Oh man, I love it. Okay. Okay, cool. So again, in the house, a lot of things happen over like a good meal. Okay, you see what's happening here?
You're pouring the sauce on the bread mixture, the bread and mushroom mixture.
And I'm moving the bread around so the sauce gets through it, not just on it, right?
Right, because you want the bread to soak up all the juices from the sauce.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There are no steps afterwards but garnish. So yes, you would bake this 350, 30 minutes. You'll be able to see when it gets done, it'll puff up a little bit, kind of like a custard. And then it will start to bubble and then it'll settle. And that will be when it's time to take it out. And it's actually really good if you can let it set overnight.
Oh.
Like this, from this point here. You can just make it late, just let it set, and then pop it in the oven in the morning. So this goes in the oven for 30 minutes. You let it set. It can cook like this, and it'll just have a little bit more dry bread. But you let it set overnight, and then you can cook it when it comes out. Look at that.
Oh, that looks so good.
And that is my savory bread pudding. Let's take a taste, actually.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, we gotta taste it. I mean, this is a piece here.
Yeah? Yeah. You know it's good when you gotta dance. Amazing.
Mushroom texture is like, it's popping over here. And you want it to be a little salty, right? So it's a little salty,
Okay.
a little savory.
Great.
The top is crunchy.
Chef Ayinde, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
This is Tutu. She has been with us for almost a year now, and we are completely smitten by her and love her personality. She is an inquisitive and outgoing character. As you can see, she has this large yard that she gets to explore, and she loves to spend her days picking at the dirt for rocks or the grass for bugs, and running around her yard with her turkey friends. Tutu's life before Sanctuary was likely lived in a dark, filthy, crowded warehouse where she was denied proper care and the freedom to be herself. Often when turkeys are just days old, they are debeaked and detowed by a process of burning or shearing. As you can see, she's missing most of her toenails and the tip of her beak. Both of these procedures are unnecessary and cruel. Tutu's path to freedom started when an art student rescued her in New York City. The student rescued her with the intent of having her be her muse for her latest art project, which celebrated turkeys as friends and not food. Tutu was not allowed to stay at the school, so she ended up at Wild Bird Fund and then ultimately came here to Farm Sanctuary, where she's able to live the rest of her life doing what she enjoys. You too.
A lot of people are raised on the idea almost that farm animals are kind of like automatons. They're just robots. They're just kind of part of this machine that gives us food, when they're living, breathing, thinking, feeling animals.
Farm Sanctuary is one of the largest animal rights and farm animal rescues in the nation. We rescue animals out of the abuse and neglect situation, get them healthy, and then give them lifelong care and love and sanctuary.
I've just always loved the rescue aspect of Farm Sanctuary, the fact that animals can come here from horrible experiences and live out their lives happy and free of any fear of harm.
When I first started here, the thought of getting to meet cows and sheep and all that was really cool, but I didn't really think much about the birds and the turkeys especially. When I did get to meet them and hang out with them and see how much personality they have, the birds have become like my favorite animals on the farm. They are just so silly.
They have so much personality, you know, they make friendships, they chirp, they make happy chirps, you know, they get angry. A lot of people don't see them like this, you know, it's just in the supermarkets and the grocery stores, and it's just cute seeing them in their element like that.
Most of the turkeys started out on factory farms. A lot of them came here by anonymous drop-off. They would have only been able to live maybe 3 to 5 months in a factory farm until they got to commercial weight and would have died, you know, pretty young death. But most of the girls in here are 5, 6+ years old.
The celebration for the turkeys is one of our yearly events that we do. It's one of our biggest. We use it as a time to talk about turkeys and the way that they are treated in the animal agriculture industry, and then how we like to celebrate them and treat them.
So like the tables are going to be this way, or they're going to be this way? They're going to be that way. This way, so they're going to be parallel to the barn. Exactly. To the barn. Okay.
At both our Acton and Watkinsglen location, we create these lavish and beautiful feasts for our rescue turkey residents to honor them at this time of year.
It helps people kind of try to start a new tradition surrounding the holiday season where these animals aren't a centerpiece on the table.
Thank you. Oh, they're gonna love it so much. Most of our turkeys are on restricted diets to keep them at a good healthy weight. So they don't get these lavish feasts, you know, but once a year, and it's a huge deal.
It mimics our natural diet, which would be, you know, foraging through the forests and meadows for seeds and fruits and nuts.
We cooked up pumpkin, cranberries, kale, squash, apples. It's nice and pretty.
Yeah, really get this swirl. The turkeys will appreciate that.
It's fun doing a little decoration.
Yeah, make it nice. A little presentation.
Yeah.
That looks the best. You're probably gonna love that. Our masterpiece.
And it's always just a lot of fun putting together the mix of all the colors and all the different types of food. They definitely go crazy for it, which is always just so much fun to watch. This year's been very different in many different ways with COVID. We miss having the huge numbers of people to be able to talk to and have the chance for them to in person meet all the turkeys, but I think it has given a unique opportunity with being able to do stuff online like this for people that are maybe further away or can't afford to come to be able to still experience this event.
They're gonna go head first into this. Oh yes.
I think when you kind of see the doors open here, when all the food's presented and they like rush out and they're so excited, it really shows that the turkeys can be as engaged and as aware of the world around them as, you know, our pet animals are.
This is the calm before the storm, so get ready. Yeah.
Just like you and me, turkeys would much rather eat a meal than be the meal.
think this year they really loved the kale. The kale was definitely a favorite. They really, really go to town and they really enjoy that extra treat.
The celebration of the turkeys this year was a huge success. We were kind of worried, like, oh, this year not having people here, how are the turkeys gonna react? They didn't mind one bit. It's about celebrating them, and I think they felt celebrated today.
I feel like turkeys are one of the more misunderstood animals in animal agriculture. Most people, their experience with turkeys are just going to the grocery store and seeing this hunk of white flesh, and you don't really even think about where that came from. These are actual living beings that have feelings and emotions and deserve to be celebrated.
It's so nice to see that they have personality and, they are so excited for like a Thanksgiving feast for themselves, and it's like, oh, I had no idea that, turkeys were like this.
When you think of Thanksgiving, people almost universally think of turkey and not a live turkey. They think of the turkey that's on their plate.
I think the majority of people are really compassionate. They just haven't been exposed to these animals in that way. People don't get to see these animals feeling joy. And I think once you see a creature feeling joy, you don't want to take that away from them.
Wow, what an amazing event. Again, the celebration for the turkeys is so inspiring, and I just want to thank you all for being part of it, for being part of this community, and I want to wish you a wonderful holiday.
Another happy flock and another great celebration. While we missed being together at Sanctuary, we want to thank you all for joining us virtually and helping us reimagine this important event. And we want to thank Jocelyn Ramirez and Allende Howell for offering delicious plant-based recipe ideas. We are honored to have welcomed tribal leader Rudy Ortega Jr. and to have had the opportunity to acknowledge the Quisavatum descendants, who are citizens of the Fernandino-Tataviam Band of Mission Indians, and the Seneca people, part of the Iroquois Confederacy. We see in our sanctuaries the power to invoke the vision we all need for a more just and compassionate world, and a faith in that possibility. We are inspired by the turkeys and all the animals who live at our sanctuaries, and by all those working for justice in our world. We are grateful to you for joining us and building on the long tradition of Farm Sanctuary's celebration for the turkeys, humbly evolving and growing together toward the future we all know is possible. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next year.